Hi everyone. This is an octave deeper than usual, I've got to say, and it will be casual mostly because I'm involved. Has everybody been having a great time at the conference so far? Has any been some favourite, can I just hear like what's people's favourite session been so far? Anybody here? What was that one?
Just now.
Budgeting. Oh, was that the one that was just now? And that's got people fired up. Was anybody here for Simon's talk yesterday morning? It was all so thought-provoking. Part of the discussion I was hoping we would have today actually has a bit to do with his model that he put up on the board. You'll remember it had a few circles and arrows pointing various places about transmission and accountability. I actually think online's one of the contributors to those sort of lines of accountability and transparency, but also the transmission of messages both ways as well. It's only one of them, but that's what it's an important one. So I want to just hopefully we'll just keep that in mind as we're going through today. And as Kylie was saying, I prefer this to be a conversation because I'm a terrible presenter. So if we're all just talking to each other, just feel free to stop me because I'm almost a bit nervous now to be showing people some. I also feel almost dirty using the word data now. It's been mentioned so many times over the last 2 days. So Bang the Table is a online engagement business. I don't necessarily want to do a sales pitch for that. What I want to do is talk to you about the fact that across all of our clients, what we've done is we've been noticing their behaviour, what they do that works and what doesn't work, what works best. So in terms of engaging people, specifically about getting the highest percentage of engaged participants on their websites. So we've been looking at all of our clients in aggregate and trying to work out what are the things that we can learn so that I can tell you about them. And so hopefully the thing that we'll be able to do today is actually make this really practical. At the end I'm going to tell you 4 things. Hopefully they won't change your life. Hopefully they're the sorts of things you go, yes, that makes sense to me and I can do it. That are just really practical things that you can do to get people engaging with you better. Who is currently using any kind of online service to engage with people? Is anybody not? Cool, right. So that's good. This should be pretty much irrelevant of not really matter what particular software you're using. What we're trying to do here is show general principles for things that you can do to just engage people better. I want to draw your attention to Bang the Table first. This is our website, and this is supposed to be a resource for all practitioners. Okay, so there's actually no software information on here at all. If you go to bangthetable.com, you'll find lots of information. A lot of this will be published on this site in the coming weeks, and what it's got on it is just lots of interesting things, no matter what your particular discipline might be. We've got a bit of stuff about planning and design thinking and just lots of things to help practitioners. So if you're looking for inspiration or resources, go on there and have a search around. So, with all that in mind, let's do a bit of show of hands. We've already done show of hands to show me who's engaging online already. That's good. This is what Bang the Table does in Australia and New Zealand, right? So these are all of our clients represented in little numbers, just to show you how many of them are spread around. We're also in other countries, but we're really just focusing on Australia and New Zealand today. So most of our clients are where the people are, as you'd expect. New South Wales and Victoria, with actually quite a lot of activity in Perth and Queensland, and actually South Australia being really one of the best performing states for doing things online as well, even if it's not with us. So have we got people from all around the country here today? Any New South Wales? Yes? Are there South Australians in the room? Thank God. What about Queenslanders? Who's coming for the furthest? Queensland? Who's coming the furthest? Singapore. Sorry, you're not represented. This blue circle here is actually this blue part. Oh, it's not very blue on here, is it? These are our Australian clients, 209. So we'll be focusing on those 200 as the study group for what people are doing. We also cover a really wide range of sectors. So down there on the left-hand side, you can see roughly half of the people in this study are local government, but state government 31%, national 7%. We've got community, not-for-profit, and then various other industry bodies, agencies that are also doing it as well. So also keep that in mind. There's a good cross-section. What have we got in the room here today? Can I see if there's any councils hanging around? Yes, lots of those. Great. Any state government as well? Anybody classify themselves as other? What are you guys doing? Oh yes, I saw you yesterday. You're on the complexity lady.
Yes, I'm the complexity
Oh, I'm
lady.
so confused. I came out of there and went, oh, that was complex. And this is actually, this chart here is really the reason why we did this study in the first place. So what this shows is we measure on our sites activity on a scale. So we measure what we refer to as aware people. So aware just means you've come to the site, but you didn't do anything, right? You just came, and you might have had a look, but you didn't click on anything, and you took off. Then we also measure informed, right? So informed people come to the site, have a good hunt around, they look through all the documents, and they watch the videos, and they do all those things, but they don't actually leave a comment. And then finally, the engaged cohort, these are subsets of each other obviously, they are the ones that actually leave a comment behind. So they either fill in a survey or write in the forum or whatever it is that they do. And that's what we're focusing on today, the engaged number only, right? Just looking at how many people are bothering to do that, and what is it that different users are doing to encourage them to do that. So that's the practical element of what we have to see today. And the good news is that this is Christmas 2014, and across all of our sites, the average engagement rate was 1%. And we were living in those days by a standard rule of the internet, which we call the sort of 99-1 rule, and it's not for engagement specifically, but it's just for websites generally. It's just a general rule of the internet where the majority of people that visit a site don't actually engage with the content. Right? So, in fact, it was believed for a long time that roughly 1% of people that visit your site actually really do anything. So we were like, oh, that's okay then, 1%, yeah, that's fine. Let's see if we can do better though. And over the last few years, we've managed to actually get it up to 4 to almost 5% across all sites on average. And that's also keeping in mind that roughly a third of all of the projects or consultations that are published actually don't have any engagement tools on them at all. Right, so they're explicitly for the purpose of informing people, and that actually drags the average down quite a lot. Okay, but so if we excluded the projects that aren't really intended to engage people, this would probably be considerably higher. And we went, what's going on? How did this happen? How do we go from 1 to 4.5? There's got to be a good story there, and how can we propel people to get even better? So this is what we're going to talk about. Any questions so far? Is anybody completely unfamiliar with Bang the Table and who is? No? All right. So, more charts. Sorry, everybody. So I've got on here all the different charts. So what I'm going to do is ask people. I'm going to turn some of these off actually, but just ask people around the room to put up a show of hands, and we'll turn them back on for which sector is yours. So councils, I know we have councils. That's your dot. This chart, what it shows is, if you're, the further to the right you are, the higher the percentage of engagement you're getting as a sector, right? And I'm going to put up a whole bunch of other sectors in. But the further to the right you are, the more engagement you're getting. And the higher you are, the more informed visitation you're getting. So if you're right up here, you've got lots of people who are visiting your site and learning a lot, but not necessarily engaging and leaving comments. If you're all the way over here, you've got lots of people making comments and getting involved with each other or with you. If you're up here, you've got both happening. And if you're down in that corner, sadly, you're probably not doing anything in particular. Oh. Well, fortunately, I had a lot of practice with this last night. All right.
Don, can I just ask a question? If people are not engaging, how do you measure whether or not they're learning a lot?
We're inferring that they are, because we take notice of what it is that they are doing. So we've got a whole list of informed actions that people can take, and they are things like if they click on an image, a map, if they're downloading a document, watching a video, all of those things get collected up, and we sort of infer that if someone's clicking on the video link, they're probably watching a video.
Yep.
Like it's that simple. So it's not really. We can't know absolutely for certain what they're doing, but we're pretty confident.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So
yes. Data on time spent as well, don't you?
Yeah, we do. That comes mainly through Google. So you know, whatever service you're using, you can do that, and time spent's important. The other thing is the bounce rate. So people that are just coming to your site and going away, we measure those as the aware only guys. They're visiting but not doing really anything, but they know that your site's there.
Yeah.
So that even that counts as something, in our mind. Sorry, who is anybody in the room here who would identify themselves as being in the transport sector? Yes. All right, I'm going to put you on. You're going to be happy about this. Ta-da! Right, and the bigger the dot, by the way, the more average traffic that these sites are getting on a monthly basis. Health. Anybody in health? I'm going to show you health anyway because it's great. Are you health? Right, so we get some relative stuff here. Land use planning. Anybody? Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Economic development. Who would be economic development? Yeah, got one of those. Good. Yeah. Industry regulation. That's exciting, isn't it? No, I've got it on anyway. Ooh, who would have thought that was so good, right? Environment and conservation. Anybody in the room doing that? Yes. God bless you. So we should have a green dot for you. Sorry. Welfare sector. Anybody? Yeah. Emergency services. You can see that one, emergency services as well. Education. Please, no, I don't want anyone from education. Oh, there is one. Oh, this is really distressing for you. Sorry. We've got energy as well, that's a great one. And we've also got waste management as well. So what we're seeing, and this kind of comes to a broader point. I'm going to show you some sites for each of these dots, just to give you an indication of what people are doing in each sector. But I think the real general takeaway for you guys is it's really important to make what you are talking about. This is going to seem really dumb. Sorry to say it, but it's really important to make whatever it is that you're saying really relevant to the audience. All right? And so one of the reasons why transport is both highly visited but also highly engaging is because the subject matter of what they're putting up online is actually really important to people. It's a really big impact on their daily life. And these sites are well presented. I'll be showing you quite a lot of them. But at the same time, they're also, they're really relevant, and they're also nicely put together, this information. Over on this side, things like energy, it's fair to say that the goal of these sites isn't actually to engage people that much. So this isn't a judgment, really, about whether or not people are doing well or not, because some people actually have an explicit goal of informing, and they're actually doing fabulously well at that. You know, 60% of people who are going to these energy sites and the land use planning stuff as well, they're learning. They're actually going in. They're learning quite a bit, but they're also in some cases they're having a bit to say as well. But you know, that all depends on whether they've been invited to actually do that. And some people aren't quite in that spot. And so you can see as well, local government, particularly given how many of them are, there's obviously a real spectrum in all of these sectors for how differently people are doing things. But yeah, they're on average actually going really well. You'd have to say, what's that, 4% engagement and 55% informed as well. Is this all seeming about right to people? A lot of furrowed brows. Could just be because it's Wednesday morning. We've all been out last night. So I wanted to flick through a couple of sites to just show you what some of these guys are doing. Local government first. Really just nice, friendly, simple to read stuff going on. So we've got Canning Highway Stage 2. Now, I don't actually know what that is, I've got to say. And what we would recommend is a bit more of a clearer instruction to people when they're jumping on. But if you happen to know what Canning Highway is to you, then I think the thing which I wanted to show you here is actually how well, this isn't obviously a page that's necessarily about engagement, but it's about just sort of teaching people stuff and saying that there's an open day coming up. So they're blending their offline engagement with their online. They've got information about their open day. They've got reports. They've got some really simple diagrams to show people what they're doing. FAQs, one of the more important things is showing people where the process is at. So feedback's currently open. We've got a form that you can fill out. We've got RSVPs for an event. Really just very simple stuff. This isn't, we see this quite a lot. Obviously people love using a submission process. I'm going to come to what do tools matter, and they certainly do. This is the lowest value in terms of getting engagement, but it's also a process that a lot of people have as a statutory requirement, so they feel like they need to do it. Now, if we look at another page on this same site, they've done a really great community arts project. Right? So, in this case, we've got public art in our city, where, why and what. So in his case, they've got a map of South Perth. They've put on in the black, we're going to have to zoom right in. The black ones are existing artworks. The red ones, these ones, are where people are asking for new ones to be put in. And this is much more engaging for people, right? But it's also a different purpose. So you blend your different purposes in depending on what your project is about. What else have I got here? Transport. I wanted to have a good show you through transport as well, and just show you what the sector is doing. Because obviously we saw lots of engagement going on, and I think there's quite a lot that people can learn from the transport sector. So this is highly controversial project in Victoria. It's all about level crossing removals, and obviously that's all about construction, and in some cases about building elevated railways through the suburbs and change. And so people are obviously pretty interested in how that's going to work for them. So in this case, there are literally dozens of these going on. We've got all of these different locations and different tiles for them. And a big part of this process is actually teaching people what it is that they need to know about the project. So we've got embedded Google Maps to show people where things are. We've got videos. We've usually got quite a lot of diagrams showing people how to do things, and these are actually embedded into a survey. So, you know, they're actually informing people through the survey as they're getting them to fill it out. They've also done quite a lot of mapping. Which one is it? And forums as well, discussion forums, to get people actually talking about what it is that is actually on their mind. What are the big issues that people need to be people debating with each other about these projects. So in this case, particularly the conversation on here, we've got hundreds of people, 490, just in the last month, who are jumping in and really getting stuck into having a debate with each other about these level crossing projects. I just want to show you one health one as well, just to give you an idea. This is a really emerging space. There's a lot more engagement going on in health at the moment, and what we're seeing here is the Women's Hospital. They actually are using this in a very stakeholder engagement style. So they're actually inviting a lot of people into closed groups, smaller groups of very highly engaged people, where you've got nurses, you've got people who are engaging on particular issues, other types of professionals, but they are, in some cases, really personal things as well. So a lot of the projects on this site are actually closed down to the point where we can't see them, you've got to be invited in. But something like responding to family violence, actually the engagement that they're looking for in this case isn't necessarily around having a debate. In this case, what they're doing is they're informing people. There's quite a lot of information. There's quite a lot of information about who's listening and who's involved as well, which is another thing we see as useful. Encouraging people to ask questions in a safe place, but also asking them to register to get involved further. So engagement takes all different forms, and that's fine. It's just you can plan, basically planning the type of engagement you want from the outset and going for it. All right. This one might also seem like a bit of a no-brainer, and I just want to show you a few things about admin activity. All right, so one of the things that we track is how often are people logging in to use and update their information, add new things to their sites, and how does that relate to engagement rates? Okay, so if you're not logging in at all, amazingly, you don't get very much engagement. So these people down here have not logged in at all over the last 30 days, and all of their engagement rate on average is below 2%. All of them. Not one person has managed to go over that. And then what we see is we've actually grouped people into 3 other groups.
I just wanted to clarify on that.
Yes.
Are there some like gates to certain types of participation if you're not logging in? For example, can you not participate in a discussion board if you haven't logged in?
Good question. I haven't explained myself properly. These are the administrators of the sites.
Oh.
So they're not actually participants.
I see.
This is about if you're the user of the site and you're driving the content on it and you're the person who's actually planning and running the engagement, not logging in is not going to work for you in terms, that's just latent engagement. That's just people finding their way there without really anybody doing anything about it. So it's less than 2%. So what we see then is if people start doing things on their site more, right, so if they're coming in a few times a week, all of a sudden we've got far more people above that line, right? Even more. This is all the way up to once a day, 30 times a month. We're getting a lot more people logging in, but also far more engagement, up to 20% up here for these guys. Really doing well. And so the higher up these dots are, the more engagement they're getting on their sites. But you can see that a lot more logging in, we're getting much more above the average. And finally, these are people that are logging in more than once a day. So we do actually have some further analysis on what types of actions they're doing, which isn't on this chart. But the things I can tell you is if there are, we log all activities and we judge them as either passive or active. So people that are getting in there, they're launching new tools, they're updating information, they're doing things that are actually going to actively encourage people to come along to the site. Not surprisingly, they get a lot more engagement. That's these things. Yes?
Presumably, admin people are doing more things on the site on a more regular basis. They're also probably doing other things external to the site.
Presumably they are, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not a,
No,
yeah.
no. This is only one piece of the puzzle, but for us, this is the piece that's visible to us. So this is the sort of thing where we're happy to hand it over to you and go, well, what other activities are you doing that you can, because we're about to get even deeper into this, what other activities are you doing around your online engagement, which are also driving participation? So, but that's quite stark. What that really shows you is if you're actively using your site, then you're going to get more people visiting it. This one is also really important. How am I going for time?
Yeah, you've got 10 minutes or so.
Fantastic, okay. So this one's also really important. This is about promotion. Okay, so you won't be able to read all of this, but really it's just important to look at the figures. So on this side we've got social, right? What this measures is your average engagement rate depending on how much social traffic you're getting to your site. Okay, so in this case, we're getting, if less than 1% of all traffic to your site is coming from social media, engagement rate of 2.4%. If between 1 and 5%, so this is, we're not talking a lot, 1 and 5%, you're getting 3% engagement. If you're getting over 5% though, and that's not a massive number, you're getting 8.3. Right? So the thing that we're obviously able to infer from that is that actually promoting through different channels really works. I mean, that's a massive jump to go from 3 to 8%. And so all these little actions add up. Having a good social presence obviously helps you get to the right people who want to engage. This one's also really important. Engagement HQ has a newsletter function built into it and also has a participant database. So what you can do is you can ask people to register when they're engaging on your site. You can then stratify those groups and you can send messages directly to them. Okay, so, or you can just send it out to everybody. It's fine. But sending messages to people, we've always thought it probably encourages engagement. Right? So this is sites that aren't sending out a lot of newsletters, 45% chance that you're only getting low engagement. Okay? People who are sending a lot of newsletters, 71% chance that they're getting high engagement. So this, really the main takeaway you need to take from this is that sending out newsletters makes a really big difference to the amount of engagement you get on your site. It's not really rocket science, but I think the reason why this is exciting to us is that all of a sudden now we're able to quantify just how important these actions are. And we see some sites that are really great at it. I was actually going to show you a couple of local councils. This is Orange. What else have we got? Sunshine Coast, who are actually really fabulous at using their databases. You know, if you look at their sites, nothing particularly startling jumping out in terms of this isn't super, design stuff. We're talking about roads, talking about water pipelines. It's all the normal things that you'd expect. This Sunshine Coast one's actually really fantastic. Is actually really nicely designed, and they're encouraging people to use, provide ideas and all that sort of stuff. But the thing which they're actually really doing well is they get great social traffic because they're picking out the right content and they're sending it to the right people, and they use their databases really well to get people coming back time and time again to continually engage with them. Is anyone surprised by that? Thank God. Here we go, this is the last one. This is all about what tools you use. Engagement HQ has a whole range of feedback tools. So do all sorts of other platforms. You would have met some of the guys that also do digital engagement here at the conference. These are the ones that we have. So we've got something called Brainstormer or Ideas, which is about collecting ideas from people. I just showed you. I'll show you that one in a moment. Forums. We've got a thing called the guest book for people to just leave comments where people can't interact. It's just a standalone comment. Places is about interactive mapping. Q&A for asking questions. Quick polls, just instantaneous single question polls. Storytelling for collecting digital stories in either video or image formats or in words. And surveys. Right? So they're all the tools that we use. And what we're seeing on here is the likelihood or the number of successful projects, high engagement projects, that use these tools, but also along here, the median engagement rate when those tools are present on an engagement project. So basically, the higher up you're going, the more likely it is you're going to have high engagement, and the average engagement is actually shown here as well. The size of the bubble is how often people are using them. So let's just start with that, size of the bubble. First things first, everyone loves surveys. It's not actually the most engaging thing on the chart though. So, and particularly, I mentioned it before, if you're doing a submission process, we actually know that that's like the least engaging thing you can possibly do. So less than 1% of people get involved on submission processes because they're laborious and they take a long time. Generally they're not that quick and easy to deal with.
And isn't that why we use them?
It could be. It could be. Yes, well pointed out. Whereas on the other hand, we've got these things which are relatively new. This is our brainstorming and also ideas generation and interactive mapping. Not as popular in terms of their everyday use, but massively higher engagement rates. And the reason for that is it is actually quick and easy. So people are just able to click on a map, drop a pin down, make a quick comment, or type their idea in, and they're all done and moving on nice and quickly. We've got polls here as well, also pretty popular, and then forums is the other one that gets used quite a lot. But as we go down the spectrum here, we move from really quick and easy through to surveys, and then we move down into the more qualitative tools where people are actually having to make more of an effort to participate. So, you know, if you're in a discussion forum or you're telling stories, there's, you know, you have to sit there and actually type in your views and have it, maybe even have a debate with somebody. So, yes, Maggie.
Oh, sorry, can I just ask, I'm really sad about the sort of depth of forums, I have to say. And
We think this is great.
surveys.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you.
I just think that, you know, there was a lot of potential in them, but, you know, do you have any comments about why forums have kind of died and suddenly we're in surveys rather than forums? Because to me, that's going really backwards, because we've gone from something where people could actually see what others are saying to a two-way communication. And I mean, you know, like you guys were at the front of that, and now that's kind of
So there's
gone.
the other thing that there's some other data that was really hard to represent on these charts, but I was really heartened by it, right? So we're going to work out a way to show it to people, but what we did was we actually split all of the projects down a median line, which is around 5% engagement rate, and we said everybody who's above 5 is in the high engagement group, and everyone who's below 5 is in the low engagement group. And then we said, well, what's the common characteristics about the high versus the low? On the low side, much more likely to be doing surveys. On the high side, much more likely to be doing ideas, maps, and forums, and question and answer. So it is actually the tools that are allowing people to have a dialogue with each other, to learn from one another and see what everybody else's views are, that when used in combination are more likely to see a higher engagement rate. But we're not taking this as bad news at all. Like that's still 3%, and that's on average. And I just showed you that LXRA level crossing site that had 490 people participating in it. You know, the forums are far from dead. I think that there's more of a practice question around the easiness of putting up a survey, and I guess some cases possibly, don't want to be unkind to anyone, but pandering to internal voices who say, I want the numbers, right? Rather than to read through all of the comments. And part of it might be that people perceive qualitative data analysis as a drag. You know, they don't actually want to read all the comments, or it's time consuming and or expensive to do it. Do you have a question?
I have a question about, this is all the stats on the online engagement. Do you ever bring in stats on what other activities, engagement processes were occurring, combining it with this data to see, you know, what the right mix is?
Oh, that would be
and also
fabulous.
And whether the engagement outcomes are just like numbers of engagements that the actual effectiveness of decision making.
So that would be absolutely fabulous. We would probably rely on really great practitioners like Pia, who are here, we're nearly all of them, and who actually do combine a lot of the offline and online in a lot of their projects to sort of give us a steer on that kind of stuff. Because unfortunately we can only collect data on what our clients do on our sites. But we know that they do lots of other things as well, and so we can kind of guess at what some of those are. To me...
Okay, so they don't get you to then combine that with other data?
No, I mean, that'd be really exciting. The thing which I would love to mostly be able to do is actually see how many of people who are using online engagement or otherwise are closing the loop, and what kind of impact that has on return and repeat engagement. So that might be a future project that we have, because that's one of those things that you would have all been to these conferences as events dozens of times. It's one of those things that comes up almost every single time I've been to one of these events, how important closing the loop is. But at the moment we have no visibility of how important it is. Everybody kind of feels like it is, but it would be great to be able to actually measure that and really be able to show it. I've also got a little bit of information here just on informing people, right? So these are the widgets that you saw on the right hand side of these are the information tools that are getting people learning about what's happening on the site and how they affect the informed rate. So this is actually just jumping out of engagement for a moment and just talking about information. What we've got is the most effective things that people seem to be the most interested in clicking on all the time is things to do with just informing people around the process. So key dates and the life cycle widget, which actually shows the steps in which the engagement will run, so people can see where in that cycle they are, seem to drive the most informed traffic. But we've also got videos, documents, and interestingly the project team. So telling people who's involved, who's behind the project, and putting this is back to accountability, putting a name to the project and saying, look, there's actually somebody at the other end of this computer who's paying attention to what you're saying. That also works as well, yes.
Just wondering if there's any correlation between having those tools on the site and the degree of engagement there.
With the widgets, yes. But we suspect that it's weak. So the data's not really good enough to make any really substantial conclusions. This was the best we could do today. What we sort of see in terms of engagement is we've got a thing called a custom widget, which is basically just a box that if you actually know how to use some HTML, or you've got a third-party thing that you want to plug into it, or what have you, actually something like LXRA, they've used it quite a lot. So they've actually embedded Google Maps in here. This is a custom widget, for example. So this is a bit more of a technical thing to use. We see that actually, like sites that have that on it, generally have higher engagement. I don't think it's that though, right? What that's actually indicating is that we've got a bit more of an advanced user. They've got more resources, probably, to throw at this kind of thing. They know, it's sort of a sign of their level of proficiency. Well, I suspect. So that's just trying to create a difference out of not much really. Shoot for me, that's okay. Yes, 2 minutes, all right. That's it. So I'm going to, in summary, 4 things to remember after going through all of that. First one is make it relevant. People, we had a great discussion here about council plans yesterday. People don't want to engage with you on your council plan. They don't care about your council plan. They want to talk to you about the things that actually council plan impacts their life. Like they want to know about where, building heights and transport corridors and all those sorts of things. That's the stuff that really affects them. That's what they want to talk about. So make it relevant to people. Second thing is, as we've seen from the admins logging in, keep working at it. The more you work, the more engagement you get. So you can't just set it and forget it. You've got to keep in there, and you've got to keep encouraging people to engage with you. Thirdly, tell people about it. It's amazing. But it really makes a big difference. Just telling people about the fact that you're engaged. I was telling the right people, and not only that, but keeping track of who it is that you've spoken to and encouraging them to continually re-engage with you. It really works. We can actually see how much it works now. And finally, pick the tools that are relevant for the outcome you want. And the outcome might be informing people. That's okay. Just be clear about that. That's what what the point is before you get started. So if you want a lot of engagement, maybe you want to make the tools a bit lighter. If the type of feedback you want necessitates a certain tool, then maybe it's important to just keep in mind how much engagement you're likely to have around that, and make sure everybody's expectations are kind of in line. And so really what it comes down to is actually planning your engagement, right? So we spend a lot of time, Johannes over here, talking with 260 odd clients from all over the place, and the number one thing that we always talk to them about is just like plan your engagement first and give it the best chance of success. And that's probably the best message I can leave you with. Any other questions? Yes.
I understand your point about not being able to set and forget,
Yep.
but in coming back into the site and adding more information or changing what you're saying, how does that affect your ability to evaluate people's responses if they're not responding to consistent information?
Well, the actions have got to be appropriate. It's not just doing anything for the sake of doing anything. And not only that, but I mean, we've also seen that just coming back and checking the reporting, for example, that's not necessarily encouraging people to come into the site. But doing things like logging in and sending a newsletter, that's an action which encourages people to come back and engage. So they're the kinds of things that we're talking about. There's actions and then there's actions. Some of them are really about encouraging people back, and others are just, I just need to maintain this thing and keep it running. And they're the difference, and that's probably where we'll come back with some further insights about, well, what are the particular actions that really work. But I can tell you off the top of my head, logging in and sending a newsletter to somebody would probably be the number one thing you can do. Yes?
Is there a way that you can run this report for subscribers? Because it'd be really interesting to just see. Like we've grown our subscriptions from 100%. It'd be interesting to see what they can tell us.
So I'm really hoping that we're able to, in time, make this available, this information actually in the software itself. So when you log in, you say, oh, I want to, while you're setting up your project, for example, it might actually say to you, oh, have you remembered to tell everybody in your database about the fact that you're launching this? Because it might boost your engagement by 3 or 4%. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I think would be a nice thing to have in the future. And it's almost like one of the dreams we've sort of had is when you're filling in your LinkedIn profile, for example, it tells you about a level of completeness. One of the things we're thinking about there is sort of putting your project there, and it sort of has a list of suggestions for things that you could do to really put together the tightest. But it's hard because everybody's got a slightly different goal. So we'll probably have to do that in consultation with a lot of users to find out, well, what are the most common use cases, and then how do we set action-specific goals based on whatever your intended purpose for the page is. So anyway, that's a bit of a long answer. But we're really hoping that this can actually be useful for you, literally. But in the first case, we'll just publish it. And that way you can, you know, make your own judgments about what to do.
Great. We might, if you do have any other questions, I'll get you to ask Don at lunchtime or in one of the breaks, because we want to make sure we get you to the next session on time.